It's all covered in today's China Truths.
China's so-called modern miracles of infrastructure, bridges, highways, skyscrapers, are increasingly being exposed as tofu-dreg projects, flashy on the outside, but rotten at the core. This latest tragedy is yet another example. In the early morning of August 22nd, disaster struck at the Jianzha Yellow River Bridge on the Sichuan-Qinghai Railway. A steel rope suddenly snapped, sending part of the massive structure crashing into the river below. At that moment, 16 workers and managers were on site. The latest update confirms 12 deaths and 4 still missing. Witnesses compared the thunderous noise to an earthquake shaking the valley. This project, undertaken by China Railway major Bridge Engineering Group, was touted as the world's longest double-track continuous steel truss arch bridge. But now, with broken steel strands and fallen scaffolding scattered across the site, its grand title only highlights the contrast between Beijing's propaganda and grim reality. Locals say construction crews were rushing to meet deadlines, working through the night in dangerous conditions. One worker admitted, "We never expected something like this to happen. We just kept pushing to finish by the end of August." Online outrage is boiling over. Chinese netizens slam this as yet another tofu-dreg project, a deadly symbol of China's collapsing construction standards. Many demand to know what brand of steel cable was used. Was it counterfeit? How did such fake, substandard materials pass inspection? Behind the anger lies grief. With a single snap, more than 10 lives were gone, families destroyed in an instant, all because of shoddy work and fake steel. What was once promoted as a symbol of China's engineering power now stands as another painful reminder. Behind the glittering surface of China's infrastructure boom lies a hidden truth: tofu-dreg projects that endanger lives. In recent months, mainland China has been struck by one shocking disaster after another, each exposing fragile infrastructure and the so-called tofu-dreg projects built with substandard materials. On August 16th, a sudden flash flood swept through Dongwugai Valley in Inner Mongolia, leaving 13 campers from 5 families caught in the torrent. 10 lives were lost, 2 remain missing, and only 1 person was pulled to safety. Just a day earlier, at the Cancun Beer Festival in Sichuan, a steel truss collapsed, officially leaving 2 people confirmed gone and 3 badly injured. Locals, however, questioned the official numbers, accusing authorities of downplaying the scale and even blaming the incident on bad weather. On August 6th, in Xinjiang's Xiata Scenic area, a cable suddenly snapped on a suspension bridge, tilting the deck and sending 29 tourists tumbling. 5 victims did not make it, and over 20 others were hurt. Shockingly, the same scenic spot had already seen a cable break weeks earlier, yet promises of stricter inspections were never kept. July brought wave after wave of disasters across North China. Torrential floods in Beijing left at least 44 victims confirmed, while landslides in Hebei and Shanxi added more tragic losses. Official figures put the total casualties from the North China floods at 75, but many believe the true numbers are far higher. Even in August, the chaos continues. In Gansu province, relentless rains unleashed destructive flash floods, leaving 10 confirmed gone and 33 still unaccounted for, with extreme weather still battering multiple regions. And behind all these tragedies lies a deeper problem: cover-ups. The CCP consistently releases suspiciously low figures, fueling public doubt. In Gansu, volunteers revealed that thousands of homes were buried under mudslides, and estimated casualties could reach into the thousands. Yet the official story tells a far smaller tale.
It's all covered in today's China Truths.
Downstream of the Three Gorges Dam, lies one of the most densely populated regions on Earth. Wuhan alone has over 11 million residents, and the entire Yangtze River Basin is home to nearly 400 million people. If the dam were to collapse, the massive reservoir, holding more than 39 billion cubic meters of water, would unleash like a liquid bomb, sending a wave tens of meters high barreling downstream. Cities like Yichang, Jingzhou, and Wuhan would have no chance to evacuate in time. The flood would wipe out everything: bridges, power plants, hospitals. Within hours, millions would either be swept away or trapped in an endless sea of water. It would be the single largest humanitarian disaster of the 21st century. Unlike natural floods, a dam break wave is a precision killing machine moving at terrifying speed. In the first 30 minutes, the water could travel more than 100 kilometers, swallowing entire towns in its path. Its force is enough to toss 1,000-ton cargo ships around like toys. Industrial zones, chemical plants, and nuclear facilities along the river would be ripped apart, turning the torrent into a toxic mix of poisons, oil, and debris. The unstoppable surge would destroy all communication, transportation, and rescue networks. Every passing minute could mean tens of thousands more lives lost. This wouldn't just be a flood, it would be an apocalyptic wave. The disaster wouldn't stop at China's borders. Most major manufacturing hubs downstream, producing electronics, textiles, and critical components, feed the global supply chain. A single dam failure could sever hundreds of international trade routes, spike commodity prices, and trigger a worldwide economic shock. The death toll would stun the world, but the economic and social aftershocks lasting decades would be the true unmeasurable catastrophe. Up to 300 million people could lose their homes, with millions more displaced within their own country. And it would all begin with a project once hailed as a monument of national pride. On July 30th, 2020, the seafloor off Russia erupted with a colossal magnitude 8.7 earthquake. The shock didn't just rattle the ocean, it was like pulling the trigger on a geological time bomb. Seismologists in China issued an urgent warning. The quake's energy was surging toward the massive Tanlu Fault, a giant fracture running through the nation's heartland, raising the risk of a rupture and potentially powerful earthquakes near the Three Gorges Dam. A chilling question loomed. When these faults trigger a major earthquake in the future, what will be the fate of the Three Gorges Dam? But perhaps the offshore quake was only the final spark, not the root cause. The greatest threat to the Three Gorges Dam may come from within. Beneath its towering wall of concrete lies a labyrinth of geological weaknesses, engineering flaws, and signs of structural fatigue. A machine capable of generating its own earthquakes right under its feet. When the dam first blocked the Yangtze River in 2003, it did more than stop a river. It woke the ancient rock beneath it. Within months of the reservoir rising above 150 meters, earthquakes in the region surged 7 to 8-fold. At first, authorities brushed them off as harmless, settling. But the tremors kept growing in number and strength, revealing a far more dangerous truth. The ground was getting angry. Just months after the first filling, over 600 microquakes shook Beiding County. In 2004, a magnitude 3.0 quake cracked adobe walls and sent boulders weighing hundreds of kilos tumbling down slopes. By 2008, when operators pushed water levels to the 175-meter mark for the first time, a magnitude 4.6 quake rattled an area 400 kilometers across. In 2012, one single day brought 152 earthquakes. The breaking point came on December 16, 2013. A powerful magnitude 5.1 quake struck directly beneath Beiding County, inside the reservoir zone. This was no harmless groan. It was a full tectonic event. Scientists discovered why. The immense reservoir acted like a hydraulic injection system, forcing high-pressure water deep into fractured limestone, prying open an ancient fault line. In the process, they identified a previously unknown 15-kilometer-long active fault, the Sichuan Fault. Calculations showed it could unleash a magnitude 6.5 earthquake with a 13% chance, more than 1 in 8, of exceeding the dam's design limits. The danger didn't stop there. In March 2014, back-to-back quakes of magnitude 4.2 and 4.5 struck Zigui County. In June 2017, another double shock, magnitude 4.8 and 4.6, hit the Zigui-Badong border, toppling more than 160 buildings. Ground acceleration reached 0.165 G, over triple the local building code standard. History had already written this script. In 1967, India's Koyna Dam triggered a magnitude 6.3 quake that killed 180 people. The Three Gorges Dam now seems to be walking that same path. And perhaps the deadliest truth? The dam's foundation was never what officials claimed. They assured the public it rested on solid granite. In reality, it sits atop the Huanling Syncline, a warped geological formation riddled with active faults, including the Xianushan, Huan Creek, and Qianji faults, all showing increased seismic activity. The dam doesn't stand on solid ground. It's perched in a cradle of fractures, each one waiting for its moment to break. The second deception was buried in the design itself. From the very start, engineers committed a fatal miscalculation in the dam's hydraulic gradient, treating the entire 600-kilometer reservoir as if it would remain perfectly level. In 2009, with water at the dam held at a safe 145 meters, the upstream city of Chongqing was drowning under levels that had surged to 183 meters. It was a blueprint caught in a permanent paradox. To stop floods, the water must be kept low. To produce electricity, it must be held high. As Professor He Wang once mocked, the dam does the opposite of logic. When the downstream is desperate for water, it hoards it. When the downstream is drowning, it releases it. In the end, profit always wins over safety. Even the dam's proudest claim, a flood control capacity of 22.15 billion cubic meters, was a fabrication. In a confidential letter, Chief Engineer Zhang Guangdu admitted it was impossible to reach that figure without gutting power production. But political prestige demanded success at any cost, so the truth was buried along with public safety. The final and perhaps most dangerous lie is the dam's own body. It looks like one seamless wall, but in reality, it's a patchwork of massive concrete blocks sitting on the bedrock, held in place only by their own weight. They were meant to press together under pressure, but in practice, they shift unevenly, twist and grind, opening cracks wide enough for a grown man's hand to slip inside. Back in 2003, engineers tried to mask the danger by calling it horizontal movement. In plain terms, the dam is slowly pulling itself apart. Dr. Wang Wei paints an even grimmer picture, not a fortress of iron and bronze, but a sponge of crumbling concrete, riddled with voids from sloppy construction, weakened by 3 deep trenches, and perforated by hundreds of gashes carved for ship locks and a massive ship lift. The regime once bragged the dam could survive anything short of a nuclear strike, yet its own rules quietly forbid drones and even kites from flying nearby. The secrets run deep. After the catastrophic Yangtze floods of 2016, the final completion and safety report, due that year, was never released. To this day, the largest dam in the world has never been officially declared finished or safe. How does such a flawed giant finally fall? According to a 2018 seismic study, there are 2 likely triggers. First, a magnitude 6.0 to 6.5 earthquake erupting along the Sichuan Fault, a fracture awakened by the dam's own water pressure. Second, an external jolt, tectonic stress from a distant quake racing down the Tanlu Fault Zone, delivering the last deadly shove to an already unstable foundation. Either way, the shaking would set off the real nightmare. One of thousands of unstable slopes along the reservoir's edges gives way, and millions of tons of rock and earth plunge into the water. This isn't just a landslide, it's the birth of a monster, a reservoir siege. Trapped by the canyon walls, the wave grows higher, faster, turning into a liquid sledgehammer charging toward the dam. In the control room, operators stare at screens, still using the same flawed hydraulic calculations. A flat, calm lake on paper. In reality, a roaring wall of water is only minutes away, and the reservoir is already swollen to near its maximum 175-meter limit. They are left with 2 doors, and both lead to disaster. Let the wave smash over the crest, tearing away the foundation until the wall collapses entirely. or open the floodgates in a desperate bid to save the structure, sending a biblical flood racing downstream into the homes of tens of millions. When the wave slams into the Three Gorges Dam, it doesn't strike an unbreakable wall. It hits a giant jigsaw of 27 million-ton concrete slabs, held together by nothing more than their own weight. The water hammers into hidden fractures, flooding every cavity and fault line. Pressure builds inside like a bomb, forcing apart the blocks that were already drifting out of alignment. Their slow, silent creep becomes a violent, bone-snapping shear. If this giant falls, it won't be from one dramatic crack in the middle. It will be a chain reaction. Every lie told about the geology, every shortcut in engineering, every hidden flaw in construction, all detonating at the same time. Right now, that chain reaction is nothing less than a loaded gun pointed at millions of lives. And Beijing pretends it isn't even there. The Chinese Communist Party continues to hide behind vague statements and propaganda, refusing to release the final inspection report that was promised years ago. The risk is not just China's problem. Tech giants like Apple and Tesla, with factories sitting directly in the path of a potential mega flood, would see their supply chains torn apart overnight. Entire industries could grind to a halt. The Three Gorges Dam is a global economic fault line, and the clock is ticking. The truth is out there, in peer-reviewed studies, in geological maps, in the dam's own seismic records, but it's been buried under censorship and state control. Breaking that silence is no longer an option. It's a responsibility. The Three Gorges Dam is not a triumph of engineering. It is a monument to political arrogance, a blade suspended above the Yangtze River by a fraying thread. The real question isn't whether it will break, it's whether the world will act before it does.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below.